All right there, everyone. Just 40 days out from the midterms, a new Gallup poll shows that the Republicans have risen to their highest approval rating in nearly a decade. That's what we'll be talking about on today's video. If this is your first time here on this channel, a very warm welcome to you. I post 2 videos a day analyzing current events in light of conservative trends so that you can personally and professionally flourish. And so let me encourage you to support that work by clicking on the Patreon link below. Get all kinds of benefits that are solely for our Patreon supporters. And of course, smack that bell and subscribe button. It'll be a privilege to have you as a regular part of this channel. Okay, so as I mentioned, here we are, about 40 days out or so from the midterm elections, and a new Gallup survey has really sent shockwaves throughout the political class here in the United States. The poll found that the GOP's favorability was at a 10-year high of about 45%, just above the Democrats' 44% favorability. And, I can't help but wonder if that Democratic favorability has tanked since the release of this poll after the way they've behaved with the whole Brett Kavanaugh Supreme Court nomination. I mean, I really can't recall another time when so many Democrats were engaged in such obviously outrageous slander and irrational frenzy. You would hope that at least they're going to take a dive in their approval if and when Kavanaugh is finally confirmed in all of this. I think they'll look pretty pathetic at that point, pretty much like the lying losers that they are. We'll see, but the Gallup poll showed a massive support for the GOP. They saw a 9 percentage point increase in their approval from this time last September, and it is the highest rating that the Republicans have had since they took back the House in the 2010 midterm elections. Back then, when they absolutely stormed the House in this massive takeover, the support level was around 47%. The Gallup analysts noted that this advantage that the GOP has over the Democrats currently is actually an inversion of the pattern that we saw during the Obama years. During President Obama's tenure, the average approval rating for Republicans was around 39%, while the average approval rating for Democrats was approximately 44%. So we are seeing a very interesting inversion here with the GOP coming out on top of the Democrats, which interestingly enough, we've only seen when the GOP went on to basically storm the House of Representatives in 2010 and 2014. Now, Breitbart's analysis of this poll is interesting because they note that the rise of the intra-GOP approval, that is the rise in approval among Republicans for their own party, is at least partly the reason why the GOP is ranking so high right now. And they quote Donald Trump Jr.'s assessment of this Gallup poll, which I think is right, where he says, Republicans finally now have a president who gets things done, who keeps his promises, who's fighting for them, and has demonstrated that he will never, ever back down against these feckless and slanderous Democrats. And I think he is so right here because for decades, we've had Republicans running as populists, running as conservative populists only to get elected and then govern as elitists. Right, this has happened over and over again. Your typical GOP candidate. By the way, this was Paul Ryan back in 2010. Paul Ryan ran as a Tea Party candidate, if you can believe it. Paul Ryan was a Tea Party-backed candidate. They run as conservative populists, and then they win the election and turn around and govern as globalist elitists. And what did Trump do? He basically campaigned as a nationalist, populist, traditionalist. And when he was sworn into office, what did he start doing literally on day one? He began implementing a nationalist, populist, and traditionalist agenda. This is what all the nationalist, populist leaders are doing as we speak right now, from Viktor Orban in Hungary to Andrzej Duda in Poland, to Matteo Salvini in Italy, to Heinz-Christian Strache in Austria, Geert Wilders in the Netherlands. This is what is driving the corporatist globalists crazy. This is not supposed to happen. Remember the pattern. You're supposed to run as a populist, but then govern as an elitist. You're not actually supposed to keep acting like a populist because, of course, that would upset the entire globalist order. Uh-oh. I think I see what's going on here. So now I do think this Gallup poll, a year and a half into Trump's administration, is confirmation that the neocon paradigm for the Republican Party is dead, and the Pat Buchanan nationalist, populist, and traditionalist paradigm is precisely where the rank-and-file Republican voter wants it to be. Trump found the sweet spot for a new political coalition of nationalists, populists, and traditionalists that began with Buchanan back in 1992 when he challenged George Bush Sr. for the GOP nomination again in 96 when he ran for president. The nationalist, populist, and traditionalist coalition has finally come together largely through the advent of what we've identified as three major insecurities developing from the adverse effects of globalism, which is namely border insecurity, economic insecurity, and cultural insecurity. All three of these have ushered in what scholars call a post-security politics, which I would argue is really the wave of the future and basically guarantees a more conservative, more nationalist, populist, and traditionalist political order in the coming decades. This is why we can say here with confidence on this channel, a new conservative age is indeed rising. Now, Breitbart's assessment goes on to analyze the state of the midterms in light of the polling, and they're coming to some very, very encouraging conclusions. What they found is that the Democrats are simply not hitting key marks they need to hit in key battleground districts to take the majority. They point out that, for instance, that in Maine's 2nd congressional district, the Republican is ahead of the Democrat by a rather comfortable 5%, according to the recent polling that's been done there. In California's 39th congressional district, the Republican is 10 points higher than the Democrat. And in Florida's 26th congressional district, the Republican is polling ahead of the Democratic challenger there as well. Now, the reason why these races in particular are important indicators is that in order for the Democrats to get the net gain of 24 seats that they need for a majority, they have to win districts like these in Maine, in California, and Florida. And as things stand right now, they're simply not doing that. As for the Senate, things look even worse for the Democrats. The Republicans at this point look like they're going to end up with a 4 or 5 more seats than they currently have. Dick Morris notes that there are 5 seats that the Republicans are poised to pick up in Indiana, North Dakota, Missouri, Florida, and Montana. In all these states, the Republican candidate is either opening up a pretty substantial lead or is beginning to surge. In terms of states that the GOP already has that they may lose, well, they may lose Nevada. The Republican is struggling there, but they're not going to lose Texas. I doubt they're going to lose Tennessee, and I don't think they're going to lose Arizona either. The GOP is just too strong in these states, and the Democratic candidate isn't very good. And so that told, we're looking at a new gain of about 4 to 5 seats for the GOP in the Senate. And so when you put this all together with the Gallup poll, Breitbart's analysis, I think, is spot on. The combination of President Trump's nationalist, populist, and traditionalist leadership, together with the extreme antics of the left-wing Democrats, have combined to accomplish the previously thought to be impossible. It looks like this environment has, in fact, unified the GOP, which was otherwise extremely demoralized and divided over several years of Republican, globalist, elitist leadership in the form of Speakers Paul Ryan and John Boehner. The whole pattern or tactic of running as a populist but then governing as an elitist provoked a mass backlash that gave us the meteoric rise of Donald Trump, who succeeded in galvanizing the Republican Party like few presidents have ever been able to do. Now, it continues to be an uphill battle, but with President Trump's leadership and the Democrats becoming more and more unhinged, it looks like the GOP more than ever is ready to fight. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Click on our Patreon link below, become a monthly supporter of this channel, and help us to continue to analyze current events in light of conservative trends so that you can personally and professionally flourish.